if you're okay, maybe we can start. So, good evening and warm welcome to all participants for this FEDI monthly discussion forum. And today, when I think just now we were discussing, two of our guests were discussing about when Delhi and Chennai is enjoying some respite from the heat, we in Bombay are still struggling with it. We are still, the weather continues to be very humid and very hot. But that also shows that how we have got the entire country, entire breadth of the country, we have got it together. Three of us who are going to be driving this discussion forward are based out of Noida, Chennai, and Bombay. That's very interesting, as Mr. Mohanka was mentioning, interesting outcome or the offshoot of the pandemic which we all went through. There are always better to look at some positive things. So coming back to this discussion, as the word today, we are all the financial market is abuzz with quite a few interesting news items, especially that exports slowing down, the current account deficit widening. We are here today to discuss about one more important aspect, important topic of the international market, or maybe the foreign exchange market, is that the recent changes in the tax collection at source guidelines for the LRS, which we all normally know as, which is the liberalized remittance scheme, the transactions undertaken by banks under the liberalized transaction scheme. As I'm sure you would be knowing that this scheme has been there since 2004, and I think the limit was revised in 2015, which currently stands at $250,000 per financial year per person per individual. And in the last 1-2 years, if you look at, I'm just giving you some broad numbers. In 21-22, the total outflow under the scheme was a little below $20 billion, whereas in the last quarter of financial year 22-23, if you look at, in the 3 months, we had an outflow close to $8 billion, $7.8 billion to be precise. And the major jump which has come is in three sectors which stand out, is three subheads, which is the travel, maintenance of relatives abroad, and the gift. So this is the little background in which we are meeting today, and we are discussing that recent changes in the TCS on LRS transaction. What is it? Why was the need felt for it? How is it going to impact? And to take forward this discussion, to help us out in this discussion, to demystify the reasons behind it, or the how is it going to impact the banks working day to day. We have got two speakers with us. First one, I would like to welcome and introduce Mr. Mayank Mohanka. Welcome, Mr. Mohanka. And as a brief introduction, I'll say if I tell you what Mr. Mohanka defines himself as, is dreamer, learner, and achiever. I think dreamers we all are, learner and achiever we may not be. So this is three big qualities in one single person. And as a profession, I'll just give a brief. Mr. Mohanka is a senior partner in a chartered accountant firm SM Mohanka and Associates. He is also the founder director of TaxAaram Private Limited and seasoned tax practitioner. And also that launched his unique startup venture, TaxAaram.com. Maybe time permitting, I would like to hear something to do with the digitization and that faceless assessments, etc. That's quite interesting. We all are debating about digitization and digitalization of the banking services with how it is going to transform the thing. And Mr. Mohanka is also a Bachelor of Commerce with honors degree with all the North Indians would understand, SRCC, the prestigious institute in Delhi, Sri Ram College of Commerce, and fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Welcome, Mr. Mohanka. And the other speaker we have got today with us, I think it's Lalitha Janaki Raman. We normally know her Lalitha Madam, J. Lalitha Madam kind of thing. And I don't think the bankers won't need an introduction. Maybe they would all be knowing her. She is a seasoned banker from Bank of Baroda, retired as Chief Manager of Bank of Baroda, also worked as faculty for Bank of Baroda, is a regular speaker in many of the FEDI programs, and besides FEDI, she is also a trainer in the local institutes over there, and also with the IIBF, and she is a certificate has got a Besides postgraduate in commerce, MBA, CIB, also has got a certificate in international trade finance from London Institute of Business and Finance. So a very well experienced banker, the person who has worked in the area of international banking, foreign exchange, and considered to be an authority on the LRS transactions, current account, capital account transactions. So welcome, ma'am. Happy to have you today with us on this forum. And just to set the ball rolling, maybe taking advantage of Mr. Mohanka's presence over here, and he being a tax professional advisor in this field, Mr. Mohanka, I would like to first have your opinion about what was the thought process in the government quarters or the driving force behind these changes which have happened. Though LRS, TCS has been there earlier also, but that was 0.5% and 5%. Suddenly it has been jacked up to 20%, and we have seen some quick changes in the guidelines also. How do you see sitting in Delhi and having a maybe better overview of the functioning of the government over there, or maybe the tax authorities? What is your take on all these changes and the developments? Over to you, sir. You're on mute. I think you'll have to unmute it.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir, for such kind and encouraging words. And a very good evening to all my dear friends out there. Sir, as far as this, the thought process of the government behind these recent changes in TCS on LRS remittances is concerned.
Mr. Mohanka, just one thing. Sorry, I missed out. Just for the benefit of everybody over there, I would like to clarify and give a sort of disclaimer. Whatever we are going to be discussing over here, it's all the personal opinion and view of both of our guests, not to be taken as a final confirmatory verdict or the advice. Anything as an individual you need to do, or maybe as a banker you need to do. For the bankers, I will say please follow your internal guidelines. As an individual, apply your own judgment and take proper advice, suitable advice from your consultants, etc. And in banking term, we say whatever we are going to be discussing over here, talking over here, that will be under the Chatham House rules, which we say whatever is said here stays here, not to be quoted and not to be taken as a final thing or the verdict. Over to you, sir.
Yes, very true, sir. Very true. And so the thought process is the legislative intent is the deepening and expanding of the tax base. Probably the explanatory memorandum to the Finance Act 2020, which introduced this TCS for the first time with effect from 1st of October 2020 on such LRS remittances, including overseas tour packages, was to deepen and expanding the tax base. But currently, with effect from this Finance Act 2023, the rate has been increased from 5% to 20% in respect of all LRS remittances other than your foreign education and foreign medical treatment, for which the rate remains at 5%. And in case of education loan, the rate remains at 0.5%. So on 16th of May, the RBI has brought one notification wherein the Rule 7 of this FEMA current account transactions have been omitted. And Rule 7 earlier provided exemption to international credit card spends to the by resident individuals while on their visits abroad. So our Honorable Finance Minister during her budget speech has categorically mentioned that credit card payments would be brought under the TCS net. And as a natural follow-up of that action, this notification of RBI dated 16th May has come up. So what has been done is, along with that notification of RBI dated 16th of May, the Finance Ministry has come up with a series of FAQs. And in those series of FAQs, much more clarity has been provided. And one of the question is that what was the rationale behind the increase in such rates? So they have provided that many instances have come to their notices where all banks are required to file AIR and their LRS spends are being aggregated at the RBI level. The PAN card numbers are being tracked. The LRS remittances are being tracked based on PAN numbers. So what they have come to know is that these LRS remittances of many such resident individuals was disproportionately very much higher than their disclosed income. returns. So suppose a person, earlier the exemption limit was 5 lakhs only. So suppose a person was filing a return income of 4,95,000, whereas his LRS remittances stood at 6,99,000, say, or 7,05,000. So in order to curb such cases of underreporting of income, wherein the person is obviously undertaking foreign travels and incurring such LRS remittances of high proportions, which are non-commensurate with their respective return incomes. So as a tracking medium, this TCS rate has been increased to 20%. Obviously, the revenue collection is going to increase manifold by this. And one, as sir, you have rightly pointed out, the figures also, the government, the finance ministry has also pointed out some figures. As per the finance ministry, in the financial year 22-23, the total LRS remittances were more than USD 24 billion. And they have informed that out of these USD 24 billion total LRS remittances, more than 50% of such LRS remittances are accounted for by foreign travel or foreign overseas tour packages. So obviously, the government wants to track such kind of transactions in order to make accountable those persons who are filing such low income returns. And secondly, sir, obviously, in order to promote domestic tourism, I should say, because majority of such overseas remittances are towards your foreign travels, your vacations, so such kind of things. And thirdly, they have also mentioned one point that such kind of LRS remittances would usually be associated with high net worth individuals and who would be making their investments, overseas investments in real estate, in bonds and securities outside India, and in making gifts and donations and these foreign travels. So the government has justified its stand of increase by saying that your genuine and your much needed foreign remittances in respect of education and your medical treatment abroad, no tinkering has been done, and only the rate has been increased in case of other than these two kind of specified transactions for which the government perceives it as a leisure activity more than the necessity. So this is the basic rationale and justification which, in my humble opinion, would have gone into the government quarter's mind while doing so.
Okay, so the key I look is maybe to the way I look, maybe the key driving factor one can say is to curb the underreporting of income. Because if you see that people who are showing the taxable income and the total income in the bracket of say XY, but they are spending on the foreign travel or under the utilization of the LRS kind of income. That can be one reason. And along with that, you also mentioned that changes modification in the Rule 7, which pertains to the international credit card, which rightly or wrongly, surprisingly, till now was kept outside the LRS, but now that also has been brought into the LRS, ambit of LRS, which makes it bringing in more uniformity across all modes of spending or modes of remittances, basically. With that,
Very true, sir. I should
yeah.
just add, sir, one point here regarding such bringing of LRS remittances by international credit cards. As you rightly pointed out, the notification says that it is in view of bringing in uniformity in the modes of withdrawal of foreign exchange, because the debit card transactions were earlier subject to TCS, but not the international credit cards. But having said it, sir, at the same time, one contradictory stand has come up by a press release dated 19th of May, wherein the foreign spends by international credit cards and debit cards, the exemption limit of 7 lakhs has been provided in respect of all foreign spends through towards LRS. So obviously, what was the initial justification that bringing in uniformity? So in bringing in this uniformity and bringing in the subsequent relaxation, this uniformity has some way done away with, because forex transactions, your direct money exchange, your other modes of transactions, no 7 lakh exemption limit is there, but only for international debit card and credit card, this 7 lakhs exemption limit is there. So again, the uniformity is not there, and there is no justifiable reason for such distinction and differentiation, because otherwise also, sir, forex cards were much more easier to use, and obviously the loading factor was much lesser than the debit cards and credit cards. So I hope, and we all hope that the more clarifications will come up, sir, soon, and this uniformity will brought in. This is my personal opinion, sir.
Thanks a lot for that. And that brings me to my next question to Ma'am Lalitha. Basically, now, if I look at as a bankers, if I look at, there are so many different kind of possibilities over there. There is a one tax rate of rate of TCS of 0.5%. Then there is 20%. Then there are some channels without 7 lakh limit. There are some channels which are exempted up to 7 lakhs. So I would like to hear from you, ma'am, as a bank, as an ex-banker, how easy or difficult it's going to be for the banks to track, monitor, and ensure the compliance with these kind of complicated requirements or the structures, and how is it going to impact the transaction flow or the overall processes at the bank's end? How the banks are preparing for that, how they are going to cope with it, or what
Yeah.
they need to do.
Good evening. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question and good evening, one and all. This is really difficult for banks. It's not a joke, right? And which banks have been facing it. And of course, prepaid cards, they have been doing it properly. Only now this international credit cards are being included and then different slabs and everything. Thanks to the technology, they have been managing all through and which they would do. They are in the process of doing. That's what I hear from. When you look at the APBR circular number 151, dated 30th of June 2014, RBI, it's stated in that, like, RBI will not issue any instructions under FEMA, like how you need to, what is the procedure you have to follow to ensure that TCS part of it done, or anything that, that you are not going in violation of the IT Act 1961. So this has become the sole responsibility of the bankers to take care, authorized dealers to take care rather. But when you talk of the credit cards, or when you talk of the overseas tour packages, which is again a matter of concern now, because they find that more than, as you said rightly, Mr. Mayank, like more than 50% of the 24 billion outflow under LRS has gone only to overseas tour package. So what is this? What's the idea behind? That means the HNIs are taking out money so much. So who is responsible for doing the TCS over there? It is only the tour operators, the tour arranger. So in other cases, the remitter through whom the conduit is provided, through whom the system is provided by the banks. So they are responsible. How do they do it? See, that is actually how they have been doing it now for the LRS under 230,000. Let's just look at it. When LRS was introduced, what did RBI say? It's only we go by the self-declaration. There was an application form, some declaration, some undertaking, wherein the remitter would say that I will not go beyond this, and this is only for this purpose. This is the purpose code, and I'm not violating any FEMA norms. And I also declared that you are the only AD through whom I'm remitting this, right? But we never had control that time because it was all manual. Now, thanks to the system that has been developed everywhere, the digitization that we were discussing in the beginning, that has happened in every sector in as far as India is concerned, especially the CBDT. So we are able to have the control through the PAN. So there is an RBI portal wherein each bank is given a unique ID and a password. They key in the PAN and they find out like how much has been remitted so far under LRS. So this is how we have been having control. Now with the TCS, how are they going to have? I think they are in the process of developing softwares for that, wherein you have an interface with this and have a control over the TCS part of it. Because TCS again, RBI is, nobody is going to be supporting the remitters because the information given by the reporting entity has been that at some cases the credit card limit was more than the LRS limit for some HNIs, right? So that has been the case. So it's being done. So let's hope that we achieve what we want to achieve and we ensure that the forex outlay is not too much, because already our reserves have come down to 589 billion. In 21, we were almost 642 billion USD, right? So we are working towards that. It should happen soon.
Thank you, ma'am. I think the key point which I would like to reiterate over here, as you mentioned, that all the checks and controls, it's all monitored through the PAN, because there can't be any LRS transaction without we are providing the PAN number, and everything is linked to the central database. That's one. And one point which I have got certain views on that, I would like to hear from you. RBI has said very clearly, you rightly pointed it out, that anything to do with the tax, it's between banks and the CBDT. RBI is not going to give any advice or any support, any kind of references on that. Banks have to make sure that they abide by the guidelines issued by the government of India, and banks have been doing it, and I'm sure they are capable of taking care of these things. One thing for LRS, RBI also says that as a banker, we need to make sure that the amount of remittance is in sync with the known sources of income of the remitter, which somehow it is puts the onus on the bank also, and there are ways to track and monitor that. And with that kind of thing, do you think that part is being really taken care? If that was being taken care of, done well, maybe the original point about people remitting money out beyond their known sources of income, beyond their declared taxable income, that issue won't have arisen? Or is there something need to be done on that part, or people are able to find some way around that?
Yeah, what you say is very right, sir. Otherwise, this type of, increasing it suddenly from 5% to 20% flat on all remittances, apart excluding the education and medical, exigencies, the important ones, would not have arisen. The reason is only for this, because we all know under FEMA, everything goes by the declaration. Beyond the point, I personally feel, it's my personal opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not possible for a banker to go behind and find. How much can they find? There's no time. My client wants a remittance to be done. If I don't do it, he'll go to another bank, which allows him to do an online remittance, right? So ultimately, we go by the banks will go by the declaration. The onus lies on the responsibilities on the remitter, basically, originally, right? Just because the banks or ADs are expected to perform certain responsibilities and duties that are answerable to RBI, to the IT and everybody, does not absolve the remitter from doing any mistakes. One. Two, this is the main reason why it has been increased to 20%. I will tell you simply the main reason why. We say, yes, bank will ask, what is the source? Yeah, they mention, it's there in the application form. The source is mentioned. And they just go by it. They don't go back and check what is his ITR, whether it is disproportionate to his income or anything, right? One main reason why 5% to 20% has been implemented by RBI is because 5% haito, many of them don't come back and claim it also. One TCS is not final tax. TCS is only to find out. It's like paying an advance tax, and you're supposed to claim it through filing your ITR. And if they don't come back to you by filing my ITR, because my income is not beyond that, right? Beyond that taxable income, I'm not an assessee. There are so many cases wherein the funds are lying with them. So that is also one reason why they have made it 20%, made it more difficult for the remitter, because it's a huge money. 20% is quite a huge chunk, right? And depending upon the remittance value. So it is difficult, and banks, practically it would be difficult. It's thanks to the technology, you're able to have more and more control, and we are going towards this, but they have the government find a way out always, So this is basically, it's very difficult. What you say is right. Yes.
Interesting observations over there, especially on the reason to go from 5% to 20%. 5% was not hurting enough for me, that there was not, amount was not big enough for me to come back and to claim it. So 20% is the big enough amount, and it hurts more if I don't claim. There is a reason for me to come back. But one thing I would like to reiterate again, as you mentioned, that banks, yes, the onus is on the remitter, that he is not doing anything beyond the permitted barriers, beyond the guardrails of the law. And to that extent, banks have got no way to figure out whatever the declaration is given. I believe the declaration, to the extent of the purpose of the remittance. For the purpose of the remittance, yes, I totally agree. But when it comes to the total amount, maybe there has to be some degree of due diligence from the banks. Banks have got enough tools and mechanism to look at it, whether the throughput in the account and total volumes,
Maybe the
total
system
in out
should
from
throw
the
some
account.
alerts.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right. That's
yeah.
something which maybe has can be improved further, or
Considered.
if already being done, some more effort need to be put onto that, so that to make sure that the specific requirement, when it says that, that's why there are certain guidelines also, the customer should be dealing with the bank since last more than 6 months or 1 year kind of thing. If that's not the case, you should get the statement of account from the previous banker and all that. All those ways and means requirements are there, and purpose is only to make sure that whatever he's remitting it out is in sync, or it is within his known sources of income of the client, and nothing else is being done. There is no unfair practices being undertaken over there. And with that, especially from the point of 5% to 20%, since the amount has become so significant now that, and again, ma'am, you rightly pointed it out, it's not the actual outflow, it is a temporary cash outflow. Because ultimately you are going to claim it back, you are going to get it back when you when you submit your advance, pay your advance tax or file your return. If there is an excess amount paid, you are anyway going to get it back because it's TCS, not TDS kind of thing. That's one. But still, since the amount is significant, it can create some cash flow problems or some temporary liquidity issues. For that, Mr. Mayank, I would like to ask you, as a tax consultant, I'm sure people would be coming to you. Now, there are various modes. I can use that 7 lakh limit, not use the 7 lakh limit. I can go for that Forex card. I can go for the credit card. And maybe if I may have already utilized, maybe needing something for the education purposes. Education, one can always plan. Medical is, I would wish nobody has to use it and you don't plan it out for that. What is your advice? How should people go? Which channel or maybe which bucket to use first, which bucket to use later? Is it possible? Can it be made little more efficient without going beyond the boundaries of the law, without compromising on the 100% compliance with the tax requirements?
Sir, as ma'am and you have rightly pointed
It's
out.
about you. Its question is for him. Sorry,
Yes, I was asking Mayank, what is his advice? Maybe then we'll
Mayank,
see
okay.
from the bank's point of view which channel is more efficient.
In fact, ma'am would be more better placed to share more insights. But as far as my understanding is concerned, sir, as ma'am and you have rightly pointed out, that first of all, this TCS is not your additional tax or your final tax. It is just kind of, in fact, I would say that it is just like your TDS and your advance tax. It is not different from TDS, but the only difference is that your TDS is you deduct TDS on the income of someone, but now the seller is deducting TDS on your purchases. When you purchase a overseas tour package or when you make some LRS remittances, the seller is deducting TCS. So, but the ultimate objective of TCS and TDS is the same, that you can claim TCS as well as TDS in your as tax credits while filing your return of income. The only thing is, sir, that yes, one thing more, that you can adjust this TCS from your advanced tax payments. So your advanced tax payments are also to be made quarterly if you are having that much kind of income. So based on your advanced tax, suppose we can follow this specific chronology. So 15th of June is the first date of advanced tax payment. That has already lapsed. But now the second installment will be paid by 15th of September. And your quarterly TCS return will have to be filed by your bankers or your authorized dealers within 15 days of the quarter. That is first quarter up till 30th of June. 15th of July, the TCS return has to be filed. And within 15 days of that filing, that is within 30th of July, the TCS certificate has to be issued. Meaning thereby that the credit of that TCS will be reflected by the time you pay your second advance tax installment. So definitely you can check your on 26 AS. You can adjust your advance tax. Suppose if your advance tax payment not taking into account your TCS was coming X amount, but now this TCS is reflecting in your 26 AS. Now you can reduce your advance tax payment by that particular TCS amount. And even if it is not reflecting in your 26 AS, but you are very much sure that you have paid the TCS amount, the banker has collected it from you and you have made the payment, then also you can claim it while your advanced tax subsequent installments. So this is the most practical solution which I can think of right now. And apart from the buckets, the different channels, as currently, as far as this notification is concerned, this press release of CBDT on Finance Ministry on 19th of May, the international debit cards or credit card spends up till 7 lakh limit have been made exempt. So as far as possible, the person, a resident individual may be inclined to use. I'm strictly speaking from the tax point of view, TCS point of view, and not from your overall cost economical point of view, because there are so many other factors also which ma'am is better placed to share her insight. But currently, unfortunately, the exemption limit for other remittances other than your medical education treatment and medical treatment is only available in respect of your international debit cards and credit cards payments. So one would definitely be inclined to use those towards making such payments. Then, sir, you have also rightly pointed out earlier. In fact, I have personally faced this experience that some misguidance was also there, sir, because some tour operators were saying, and in fact, some bankers were also of the view that this 7 lakh, those persons who were having multiple bank accounts, that they can use this 7 lakh threshold limit by each banker or per each banker. So they were saying that there was no via media for bankers to track the overall LRS spends. But earlier, sir, such kind of, I should say, not very lawful practices were going on and were not getting tracked because the rate was low, and more or less the international credit cards were not in the radar of the government. So therefore, such kind of transactions may have been escaping the radar of the CBDT. But now, as far as my understanding goes, sir, the 7 lakh limit, as you have rightly pointed in the very beginning itself, that is, it is per PAN number and it is not per authorized dealer. It is per PAN number. So obviously the RBI is tracking such kind of things. So one should be I should say, put it like this, that we should not be misguided by such wrong notions. Otherwise, we would end up paying more penalty rather than the TCS itself. So one way of looking at it is this also, that we should follow the guidance in true spirits and as per the law of the things. And sir, as far as this currently, but I am of the firm understanding that very soon, at least this differentiation between Forex card and your prepaid cards and your direct purchases vis-a-vis your international debit cards and credit cards, that 7 lakh exemption limit should be provided across the board to all such remittances. Because, sir, we need to understand that earlier, this threshold exemption of 7 lakh was very much there towards all such remittances other than your overseas tour packages. So the mode was not applicable. The only differentiation was that international credit cards were altogether out of the purview of LRS limit. But I think that the government should bring in such uniformity so that there is no requirement to make such choices of differentiating choices. And sir, one more last thing, that is, since the rate is going to increase from 1st of July onwards, so up till 30th of June, those who intend to visit in near future, that is in July or August, they can remit their remittances now itself, that is within June, on or before 30th of June itself, because the rate, applicable rate will be 5% and not 20%. And because the timing, as per the section 206(1)(g), 206(c)(1)(g), which governs this TCS on foreign LRS remittances, is the earlier of the two, which is either at the time of remittance or at the time of settlement of account by the bankers or the authorized dealer. So if the visit is in nearby in July or August, then the remittances should be made on or before 30th of June. And I think it is permissible also that within 60 days you can purchase the foreign exchange. So for the immediate short-term measure, this differential arbitrage can be availed of. So this is my this thing. So just adding one more, in fact, I would request ma'am and you to further elaborate on this point, that I have been made to believe that if one directly purchases an air ticket, say from a foreign tour operator or a foreign airlines, say Etihad, or one makes direct hotel bookings from a foreign site, then some quarters are saying that TCS is not applicable. But in my understanding, sir, since this LRS is towards foreign travel, so this should also be covered, and the the parameter in such case, that is the credit card issuing bank, would be responsible for deducting TCS if the threshold limit of 7 lakhs gets crossed. So this is my personal view, but I would like to, sir, request you to share more, elaborate on this particular aspect, sir. Because many are quoting such as a tax planning measure that directly purchase instead of poor package, directly purchase the tickets from the website.
Okay, that's a googly you are thrown now. I'll pass it on to ma'am just for clarification. One more addition, I'll do it on that. What you are talking about, if I'm traveling overseas and I'm buying the ticket from an online platform or maybe a local office of a foreign airline like Etihad, Emirates has got office in India.
In India.
I'm buying from them, paying in Indian rupees. I'm doing a transaction with the Indian outfit, paying in Indian rupees for travel cross border. That's the point. Would that come under LRS or not? Ma'am, would you like to elaborate upon that?
Yeah, this is again a question. See, these are all small nuances which has been missed out, and people become smarter and using it. Whether it comes under or not, if you see, technically it has to, because this is for overseas travel, right? But whether the control is there, who is going to do this control part of it? PAN is given there also, right? PAN is given also. Even they are the reporting entity. They have to submit their AAR to Reserve Bank of India. This is how RBI comes to know that people have been traveling abroad. So definitely even they will be coming under, because they are issuing tickets, these airlines, even they'll become responsible, like how the circular has mentioned, Ministry of Finance has mentioned that overseas tour operators will be responsible. Similarly, these airlines companies, direct airlines companies also who is issuing the tickets will be responsible for this. So it will take time to implement that, but definitely TCS will be there. Maybe not immediately. Maybe it is not there now, but it will be in the process.
Here I would like
Just,
to add just one more small
yeah.
point here, sir, if you allow me. Sir, earlier there was one notification on August 2022, which exempted the foreign tour operators from this TCS under section 206C1G. But that was when the foreign tour operators were acting as themselves as a buyers, and they were purchasing such overseas tour packages from the Indian tour operators. So that was a different thing. So they are not exempt. But nonetheless, ma'am, when it comes to income tax provisions, suppose Etihad and all, sir has rightly pointed out that they have their offices and fixed place of businesses in India. So they might be having their permanent establishment, we say in legal parlance, in tax parlance, we say permanent establishment. So, but many would be claiming that they are not having any permanent establishment in India. They are merely acting as an agent.
Office or somebody doing.
Yeah. So then they would be claiming the benefit of DTAA, and obviously then, ma'am, in case of non-residents, when the payments are being made to non-residents by Indian residents towards such LRS remittances, then obviously the domestic provision of 206C1G will not apply. So that needs to be taken care. But obviously then again, how this TCS will be managed, as you have rightly pointed out, in near future, these small nuances and nitty-gritties will be worked out, and hopefully it should be worked out, ma'am. So as to
it should be
more, that is.
So thank you for this clarification. And before I go any further, just one information for all the participants. I can see some people have raised their hand also over there, but I'll suggest if you can type in your questions or queries in the Q&A, we'll try to take it as we progress. And after that, if anything is left, we can take it up towards the end of the session. And with that, I'll just move on to ma'am. I think Mr. Mayank clarified that it makes more business sense just from the tax perspective to exhaust your limits, better use out the debit card, credit card limit because of the 7 lakh exemption over there. Now, from a bank's point of view, since all kind of transactions are priced not necessarily uniformly, there are certain angles, aspects about the cash involvement or maybe the liquidity angle, fund at what time, what date you are paying the fund, what time the exchange rate is going to be finalized, if there are any additional charges, etc. So from banker's point of view, which mode is the most efficient? Purely from the tax perspective, we know it's better you go for the debit card, credit card. Now from the banker's point of view, taking into account all possible charges, exchange risk and the commissions, etc. What do you think is the most efficient way of looking at it? Is it direct remittance? Is it using the debit card or using the prepaid FX card? What is the preferred route? What should be the preferred route?
So, like quick, you want it to be quick and you know who is the beneficiary and it's going to an account elsewhere, it's going as a gift or donation, or it's for the travel you're paying to somebody. Direct to Swift. Swift is the best mode. But when but there are charges, nothing comes free, right? So there are charges for everything. If it is international debit card, or if it is Swift, whatever it is, the funds have to be provided in the account, right? So international debit card, if you look at it, yes, as you said very rightly, there are no charges for issuance of it or for usage. But again, for all this, if it is debit card or credit card or using an ATM outside or whatever, or cash or whatever, there is an exchange rate risk part of it is there. But I'm sending it today through Swift, I'm remitting it. It's converted in today's rate, right? So I know this is the rate. I'm not kept in any suspense or anything. One. Two, there are charges. If you talk of Swift, there are charges like there's going to be conversion, there's going to be a commission, there's going to be a Swift charges, and there's going to be currency conversion charges, there's going to be GST, right? Then if it's a debit card, I may not have commission this, that, but my money is blocked and my conversion, I don't know when is it going to happen. That's only the day when I'm going to utilize it, right? If it is an international credit card, I have another added advantage is apart from the exchange rate, which is going to happen later, I'm already enjoying a limit for which I've already, maybe I'm an HNI, I've got a free card, or maybe I'm paying lesser commission or anything. That's not a problem. But there is also something called the billing cycle. You know, every bank will be having a billing cycle of say 20 days or 25 days. So they get a credit period also, right? So this is something an individual has to choose. It depends upon the purpose. If it's for an university for education, Swift is the best thing. You're not going to use a debit card, but I'm going to travel. I may use a debit card or a prepaid card or this one. What is it? Credit card. Already prepaid cards or having the link and their banks have started charging the TCS part of it. But credit card, I think it is in the process. So it depends upon the requirement, it depends upon the convenience part of it and the risk that you take as far as the exchange is concerned. But that's a price you pay if you want to enjoy the period of credit in case of credit.
Okay, I all along knew it. You have further cemented that finance is never an easy topic to understand and master. You try to save on one end, maybe you end up exposing the other side of yours.
There's a
That's
cost.
how it is.
There's a cost for everything.
Right.
Nothing comes.
So, right. Before I move forward, I'll just take some of the questions which are there in the window. Ma'am, I would request if you can answer. I think you have already covered during the course in your explanations which you have provided. I'm just taking the first two questions, one from Amol Murthy and the Harish Aldangadi. They are talking about that first, how about for the credit cards? How do you know that this is an overseas spend or other thing? Because there's no URL available in the LRS remittances through cards. And similarly, when a parent is making a payment remittance out for their son or daughter studying overseas and remittance made towards the child to the credit to child's overseas bank account for expenses of maintenance, educational expenses, whatever it, do we need to take any evidence from the remitter? I believe in both the cases, we simply go by the declaration from the person who is remitting. And that's the final thing, as you have
Yes.
already explained. Is my understanding correct, or something more you would like to add?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Regarding credit card, it is yet to come. The process is on. So I think it should be happening in the banks already, like, to have the control part of it.
All right.
And so
And
regarding this second question, which is an interesting one, that incidental expenses towards education and medical treatment. So how the end usage will be known by the banks? So obviously, sir, the declaration is there, but this finance ministry in their series of FAQs has also informed that very soon they would be coming up with specific rules and regulations and directions. So probably some more guidance would be there on the part of the bankers, that what all, how can banks be sure about that? That whether the end usage will be towards the education and medical treatment or the general towards. So we can also hope that some more further clarifications will be given by the Ministry of Finance also, because now it is there interest part also, the TCS is their domain also, apart from the LRS, which is the general RBI thing.
Right. I hope
Yeah,
that.
actually what ministry says is that 5% will be there if it is anything related to
Yes.
education or for medical, right? And here in this case, how do I know the end use? Obviously, there could have been some sort of demand. Maybe the university is asking them, these are all the amount that you have to pay for laptop, books, usage of library and other things, right? So that is going to be there. So that sort of a communication. After all, this is again, that's what I'm telling you. You cannot do banking then. If you go behind
Exactly.
everything, right? So somewhere we go by the underlying that is proved by the documents. And that again, I'm telling, these things are not issued in any circular of Reserve Bank of India. Banks may be coming out with their own action guidelines. And that is something you need to follow because that will be there in the checklist, in the system itself. So, banking is made a lot easier with the systems, but it's a lot more difficult with this kind of
Exactly.
loopholes which are available. Yeah.
And ma'am rightly pointed out, the banker cannot be expected to be an auditor. So now they would be
That's your
asking
job.
for the vouching for give me the bills of your laptops and all those things. So a banker cannot be expected to do those things. Otherwise, banking will be impacted. Very true.
And I think, as you mentioned it right, the question comes in case of incidental expenses. And I
Yes.
think the final authority or the final source for that would be the FAQs by ministry to be looked at it, not necessarily the RBI guidelines. And in understand, I think in some of the FAQs, they have clarified medical purpose if somebody is going and there is going to be another attendant going along with them,
Yes.
how is that going to be treated? So somewhere they have already taken on record and they have clarified that incidental expenses can be clubbed with that, but I'll
Yes.
suggest that people should refer to those FAQs rather than looking for some kind of guidance from RBI on that, because RBI has already explained they're not going to interpret these kind of guidelines and banks will have to take their own decisions on that. And just moving on, I think Punjab National Bank has talked about, does any transaction with Nepal, Bhutan under ICC, IDC come under LRS? I think no, because these are the transactions which have to be in rupees and those are not treated as overseas remittances.
Yes.
You can't
Sir,
use
yes.
foreign currency cards over there.
Sir, here I would like to add that under section 206C1G, which is the governing income tax provision regarding this TCS applicability, it only talks about LRS remittances. And LRS remittances in turn only talks about Schedule 3 transactions of FEMA CAT rules.
Rule 5.
And this and specifically in those permissible current account transactions, foreign travel other than to the countries of Nepal and Bhutan, because Nepal and Bhutan travel is not permissible and it is contained in Schedule 1 of those transactions. So obviously this TCS provision does not come into picture as far as the travel to Nepal and Bhutan is concerned, because otherwise restrictions are already there.
All right. And one more thing which is looking quite obvious, but I can see how the confusion comes. Would this TCS, etc., apply on the corporate card? Corporate card is not coming under LRS. So obviously, same answer which you have said. Since that's not for the purpose of LRS, that TCS and all these guidelines won't be applicable on that.
But here also, sir, some finer nuances are there. Suppose a person incurs, uses his or her debit or credit card, then
there will be TCS on that.
Then subsequently is reimbursed by the corporate. Then ma'am, there is a dicey issue, because in one clarification, in recent clarification, in the FAQ ministry has clarified that they have categorically clarified that any business expense on the part of employer company will not come under the purview of TCS.
Yes.
So prima facie, it may appear that use of personal debit and credit cards on account of operational convenience the person may use, but later on, if the same actual expenditure pertains to business of the employer company, then I think that exemption should be there.
Yeah.
But again, then how will the banker know that this is not his or personal capacity expenditure and a corporate employer?
Yeah, but what happens is, that's what the bank has to go a little bit further, like in asking questions, like if it is the employer is deputing you to do this business, or you're going on a business trip, as per the employer's instructions, is there any communication or anything, and who is going to pay
Yes.
for it? But if he's going to use his debit card, bank will say that we will take TCS now, you claim it. So this will be reimbursed by the company, this expenses, and then he'll have to claim it in his IT. That is how it happens. So it's though, I mean, it's very clear that it will not attract TCS, but it's again going further deeper into one transaction. It will be difficult for a banker to do business, right? Per day, how many transactions are done? And that also another problem, I'll tell you, because Shashwini has been asking me from the banker's point of view. What is happening today is there is a frontline office which is looking after all these operations, forex operations, and they take everything. And there is a back office in every bank. There is a centralized processing cell. So these guys wouldn't know about all that. They'll take it and forward it, and they'll come back to these people with a distance. So this is practically, there are a lot of hiccups in this.
So just one more question, which I think covers lot many issues which have been raised by the participants. I'll take, which is going a little bit into the detail about how to calculate and arrive at that 7 lakh exemption limits, etc. Is it 7 lakh for specific activity? I have already used maybe 5 lakh, 10 lakhs. I already used for certain other purposes, and now I want to use for medical purposes. Would it be exclusive 7 lakhs, or since under TCS I've already used 15 lakhs, this any expense under the medical now overall limit is beyond 7 lakhs, it won't be getting that beneficial or the discounted rates. It will be at as per the normal rate, or there are separate buckets for each education, medical kind of thing. How do you see that?
Sir, in my humble understanding, this is not per usage or per banker. It is per PAN number. So suppose one individual has already incurred, exhausted his limit of 7 lakhs in, say, education.
Not in
Foreign education.
maybe, not in education, maybe for the overseas travel.
For the overseas tour packages. Suppose that international credit card and debit card limit of 7 lakhs has already been exhausted. So now in excess of that 7 lakh, if he incurs some education expenses or some medical expenses, in my understanding, as far as the present language of the section goes, this limit is aggregate of all the expenses taken together and not per bucket or per usage.
All right.
But
so if I've already exhausted 7 lakh for overseas travel, then I need to spend some money, send some money for medical or education. I won't get that benefit.
Exemption of 7 lakh.
Exemption won't be available.
Yes.
I hope that clarifies, because many people were having questions in around that. I thought it's better you clarify. And one more thing, since we are talking about the same, it's a per PAN number. What happens in case of proprietorship company? LRS has already clarified that there is going to be one common limit for the proprietorship firm or the individual, and they can't have two separate limits. Only 250,000 straight away is there for that. And what if now somebody is sending money for business expense for my firm? Still that it will attract LRS, it will attract TCS, it will be still the single limit, proprietor and individual, no differentiation. That thing will still hold, even if the remittance is for business expense for the firm, for my company, which happens to be a proprietorship firm.
Sir, here I would again say that we need to look into that Rule 5 and Schedule 3, which contains the permissible transactions, which transactions are covered in LRS. So suppose if I am a proprietor, I am importing some goods from and making foreign payments, then those certainly will not come under the purview of your LRS, and TCS will not be applicable, because imports are outside the purview of LRS. But if in my personal, even if I am a proprietor, but I am doing those 8 categories of transactions which are specified in Rule 5, that is your foreign travel majorly, your education, your gifts, donations, your loans to foreign relatives, then even if a proprietor is making any transaction for his business purposes, but those business purposes fall in those specified 8 categories of transactions, then I think that TCS will be applicable. Otherwise, it will not be applicable. This is my understanding of the thing, sir. But here also, sir, there is one differentiation thing, that business is business. if a company does a business or if a proprietor does a business, and you are clarifying that RBI, in fact, in the master direction of RBI, in LRS direction also it has been clarified, and taking from that, the Finance Ministry has also clarified that if the employee of a company is undertaking some business travel on account of the employer company, then the expenditure will be outside the purview of TCS. But same thing should go to the proprietor businessman also. If the proprietor businessman is undertaking some business travel, suppose I take the examples of we tax professionals, ma'am. Currently, this Dubai income tax has been enacted with effect from 1st of June itself. So many professionals are working out some collaborating opportunities there, and many would be traveling to Dubai also, strictly for their business and professional purposes. But as of now, the current language does not provide any exemption to proprietor businessmen undertaking such foreign travels for his business purposes. So I think then again this uniformity should come across, and this is again a gray area, sir, in my humble understanding. But as of current provisions, I think that TCS is applicable, which should not be the case. And ma'am will correct if I am wrong.
No, I do agree with you, sir, definitely, because it's after all for the business. When it is okay for a corporate and an employee, just because somebody is one single person who is the owner or the founder of a startup or a small business, definitely if it's a proprietorship firm, it's not going to be too big like a corporate, right? So it's like, this is something that these are all the points I think ICA will only take up, right?
And one last thing, there is a question. What about the ESOP remittances by the individual employees? Now it's very clear ESOP remittances are to be reported under LRS. Obviously, is it right to assume that since it's coming under LRS, obviously the TCS also would be applicable in that?
Sir, then again, if majority of the cases, the ESOP payments would be the expenses of your employer company. Obviously, those remittances, so any expenditure towards business of the employer company.
No, I'm
I
not
think-
I'm not talking about the discount in the ESOP. Discounted value, what is paid, that's paid by the employee.
Yeah.
For that value, since that value is paid by the employee, and that is to be taken under LRS on that part.
To acquire the ESOPs.
To acquire the ESOP,
Acquire,
whatever we are
yes.
paying.
So this will come as an individual remittance.
No,
Under
this will-
LRS, yeah,
Yeah,
this should
this will
come
come
under the
under
individual
LRS, so-
remittance under LRS as a capital transaction. Right?
So suppose a foreign individual wants to acquire some ESOPs in suppose an Indian resident wants to acquire some ESOPs in foreign country, foreign based company, and has to remit some money out of India to acquire those ESOPs. Then whether TCS will be applicable on the same or not.
Yes, that's right. So this is something very commonly it happens, but most of the MNCs,
Yes.
if they have operating in India, whenever they issue those ESOPs, they issue globally to all the employees. Obviously, the Indian employees also would be eligible for that, for which they remit the money out. Any difference between the value at which you acquire and the market value, that is taken as an income and subjected to tax. That is very clear.
That is very
subjected-
clear. Yes,
Yeah,
sir. Here we can take some help from the two incidental purposes, that is immigration and going abroad for employment, or also LRS, and any payment towards remittances towards such will attract TCS. So I think that such kind of ESOP remittances will attract TCS.
All right.
As per
So-
my understanding.
I tend to agree with that, because I will say once it's coming under LRS, obviously that all those limits are limits,
Yes.
etc. will
Yeah,
come.
that's
And
it. Period.
for this, there is no exemption limit, right? From the 0.0 onwards, that thing will be
Yeah.
applicable. All right. So with this, I think I have covered most of the questions. I may not have picked up all individual questions on that, but since many of the issues were common, I tried to take it up. And just though I have requested people to put their questions, I have seen two people who have raised their hand. I'll request Mr. Sandeep, if you want, you can just speak out. Introduce yourself and then you can speak out. You can give your question, please. Sandeep, you will have to unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So basically, in this ESOPs, so hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. In this ESOP, so if now RBI has allowed to invest under ESOPs about 2,50,000. So we have a limit of resident has a limit of $2,50,000. So over and above the 2,50,000, will the TCS applicable?
I'll say yes. I'll wait for Mr. Mayank.
Actually,
Yeah, ma'am.
yeah, please. Yeah,
Please,
yeah,
ma'am,
please,
please.
go ahead. No, when we talk of this TCS part of it, when 1G was introduced, right? 1G, let's leave the TCS part of it has been there in many trading, alcohol, liquor, and other things, right? So when this 1G has been introduced to 206C, it covered remittances under LRS. It specifically says remittances under LRS. So when it is beyond LRS, I think you have to tell us about being a tax authority.
No, ma'am, I agree with you. I tend to agree with you that as far as this applicability of TCS under section 206C 1G is concerned, and currently this is the only governing section as far as this LRS foreign remittances is concerned. So currently, very specifically, the language is that only LRS remittances will be covered. So
Yeah.
obviously, in LRS remittances, only the permissible limit is 2,50,000 USD only. So beyond that, obviously, the RBI approval is required. So the government intention is not to create TCS provisions for those transactions for which RBI approval is already required. So only the TCS provision is there as acting as a deterrent. So for those small LRS transactions, because the sum total of such kind of LRS transactions was all going above 24 billion USD, as you have rightly pointed out. So for those transactions for which such kind of further stringent and rigid approvals are required, because getting an RBI approval is not an easy task. And obviously the whole lot of due diligence goes into those kind of things. So currently anything which does not come under the purview of TCS, that it in turn implies that LRS, sorry, that the transaction is beyond
RBI approval.
then yeah, and it requires RBI approval, then TCS under section 206C 1G does not get triggered. It is my understanding. It is my understanding.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Thanks, Mayank.
Thank you.
And I'll request that somebody from Punjab National Bank, please identify yourself and you can post your question.
हेलो सर, राजीव हियर फ्रॉम पीएनबी। एक क्वेश्चन था, जो हमारे इसमें जो एलआरएस की रिमिटेंसेस हो रही है, कुछ ट्रांजैक्शन है, सब्सक्रिप्शन टू मैगजीन, लीगल फी, पेटेंट फी, ये टीसीएस इसमें ना जा नहीं रही है रिपोर्टिंग एलआरएस, क्योंकि पर्पस को डिफाइन नहीं है इसका।
इसमें सर मेरा तो पर्सनल व्यू यही है कि सब्सक्रिप्शन टू योर मैगजीन्स, योर म्यूजिक, योर सब्सक्रिप्शन टू योर डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म्स should not come under the purview of TCS, because in one of the जो इनका ऑफिशियल ट्विटर हैंडल है सर, ये फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री का, और उसमें उन्होंने एक ब्राउशर या एक तरह से पैम्फलेट बनाकर दिया है, तो उसमें उन्होंने 4-5 ट्रांजैक्शंस लिस्ट की थी कि भी TCS is not applicable on your foreign purchases of goods and services other than your foreign travel. So I don't think that foreign subscription, while in India, if you make any foreign subscription payment or your Spotify पे आप लिंक करते हो, LinkedIn पे वो करते हो, सब्सक्रिप्शन पे करते हो, तो वो सब चीजें TCS के दायरे से बाहर हैं। तो LRS की रेमिटेंस में वो चीजें नहीं है।
ठीक है सर, थैंक
यू सर। So the last one we'll take over here. There is one Mr. Varun Daji. Varun, please identify yourself and take it up. This is the last question we'll be taking, and yeah, Varun, please, over to you. Varun, you'll have to unmute yourself. I think he is not able to unmute and we are not able to hear you, Varun. So I'll just pass it on. Since I said one last question, I'll pass it on to Kirtana. Kirtana, please, you can unmute and speak.
Sir, we had a clarification as per our understanding. The amounts for international card transactions up to 7 lakhs is not covered under LRS. So, for the purpose of aggregation under section 206C1G, the amount to be taken is the amount of remittances through card transactions exceeding 7 lakhs plus other outward remittances. Is our understanding correct?
The overall ceiling of 250,000 के नीचे ही आता है ना वो भी, and I don't really get it. Why do
I
you have to
I
explain
think what
that?
you're saying is that 7 lakh, when you have to calculate, you have to look at not only the transactions done through credit card, ICD, but the other transactions also. Is that right?
Correct, sir.
Krishna?
Transactions up to 7 lakh is not covered under LRS as per a press release dated 19th May.
So
So,
I think
for card,
I think this point is already talked and explained by both our guests that this is the aggregate utilization under the LRS. 7 lakh is the aggregate utilization under the LRS, not under one specific category.
correct, sir.
So thank you very much. With that, I think we come to the conclusion of this, and I must confess that it was really enriching and grossing, and some of the aspects and the things which I had not visualized initially. Some of those issues came up, and we got an opportunity to talk about that. And thanks to Mr. Mayank and Ma'am Lalitha for your candid explanations and also giving further insights and details into it. And with that, I'll just wind it up over here. And thanks to all our participants who joined us for today for this discussion. And please keep looking for the further announcements. We have this kind of discussion and forum once a month on different topics, which is announced on our website also. And you can keep watching for it whenever the next thing, and you are welcome to join. Thank you very much. Thanks once again, and
Thank you.
Lalitha and Mr. Mayank. Thank you very much
Thanks.
for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayank and Mr.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.